J. Kristoff, how dare you? Hey book lovers, Victoria here and you're watching My Books and Me. Today I am going to be trying to review GODSGRAVE by J. Kristoff, the second book in the Nevernight Chronicle. Oh my god. So before I get into the actual review, just note that while this is not going to be a spoiler review for GODSGRAVE, there will probably be spoilers for Nevernight. So if you haven't read the first book, definitely recommend going to check that out. I will link below to my written review of Nevernight as well as my written review of GODSGRAVE. But if you have read Nevernight and are interested in GODSGRAVE, or you've also read GODSGRAVE, then stick around. So GODSGRAVE picks up 8 months after the events at the end of Nevernight, where we saw the Illuminati infiltrate the Red Church, but Mia betrayed by Ashlyn, a lot of people were killed, Lord Cassius in his dying moments anointed Mia a blade, even though she failed everything. Mia essentially saved everyone, and so now she, as I said, now she is a blade, and she has been tasked to kill a lot of people in Lee's and Atreya. Even though her death numbers are increasing rapidly for someone of her age, a lot of people within the Red Church don't think she is worthy of the title, and they kind of just don't like that she's there, even though she's doing a bang-up job at killing a lot of people. She is then tasked to go to GODSGRAVE to assassinate this woman and steal a map, but she's told specifically that Skaver is off limits. Everyone knows that she wants to seek revenge for the death of her parents, but she is told while she is in GODSGRAVE she can not go anywhere near Skaver. And this starts off a chain of events where Mia, while in GODSGRAVE, meets an unlikely ally who reveals some secrets about the Red Church, and Mia begins to question everything she's ever thought and learnt at the Red Church. So she decides that the only way she's going to be able to get close to Skaver is to be a part of the Grand Games and join a gladiatorial collegium, because the winner of these Grand Games, if they are able to successfully get to the finale, will be anointed freedom and given their prize by Skaver and Duomo, and so she would be able to be standing face to face with them and kill them. So this sets off a chain of events where she is trying to sets off a chain of events where she attempts to join a gladiatorial collegium. She doesn't exactly join the one she wanted to, but there's a lot of revelations that come with the one she joins, and even with her training with the Red Church, it's still a really tough task trying to survive all of these gladiatorial events and try and prove herself the champion worthy of participating in the final games. Throughout this entire time, she's not only learning more secrets about the Red Church and Council Skaver, she's also learning some secrets about the gladiatorial collegium that she's a part of, and most shockingly to Mia and to you as a reader, her own family. And this just really makes her more hellbent on getting revenge. However, there are a number of secrets that Mia is unaware of that you as a reader will find out, that will drastically change Mia's life forever. Shit goes down and we are left on the biggest cliffhanger in the world. I'd just like to reiterate my first point at the start of this video, which was, J. Kristoff, how dare you end a book after all those revelations and all those twists? How dare you end it on that line and expect us to wait until next year? I mean, not only was the ending a massive plot twist, but there are so many twists and turns throughout this entire book, and the plot just continues to thicken in Mia's story. You know, they always say that the second book is usually a letdown in the series, but I think this book goes beyond the first book. So much happens in this book. It's everything I wanted in a Nevernight sequel and so much more. I don't really know where I was expecting this book to go, but it went there and it went beyond that, and it was just fantastic. Once again, the narrator of our story is back with a lot of sarcasm and dramatics and epicness, and I cannot wait to find out who the narrator is. There are footnotes back in this book as well, although I do feel like there's not as many as in the first book, so if that was something that was a bit of an issue for you in the first book, never fear, never forget. There's less in here, but they're just as interesting. I honestly think some of them are more interesting than elements of the story, and I'd kind of love to read a whole book just about like the footnotes in this series. It's just so interesting to see all of the different aspects of the world that Jay has built up that he still wanted to include in the book but didn't want to weigh it down by actually putting it within the story itself and just kind of adding a new little element to the book. Our two favourite shadow demons are still tagging along with Mia, and I love their banter so much. I would love to have a book just about them, or like just a novella just about them, because their interactions and their scenes are so fun, and I honestly would love my own Mr. Kindly and Eclipse because they just add such a really great element to the story. If you thought the first book was a bloodbath, you are not prepared for this one. You'll be drenched in blood within the first few chapters. If you enjoyed the smut from the first book, then you are definitely going to enjoy it in this book. There's definitely some twists that you're not expecting when it comes to it. I ended up listening to the audiobook for this, like I did with Nevernight, and let me tell you, it is really weird to listen to some of those scenes narrated to you by Halter Graham, but the audiobook is fantastic. I definitely recommend it. It's especially really good if you do struggle with the density of this story and but it is really great if you struggle with the density of this story and the footnotes. It just all slots together so well. And just a heads up, the smut scenes are really weird to listen to on an audiobook. Like it's so weird, and just some of the scenes are just a little bit interesting to hear narrated. It's just, I honestly just recommend listening to the audiobook just to hear those scenes narrated, because it's kind of just weird. While I would love to go into more detail about this book, so much happens in it that I feel like if I mention anything, it's going to be a spoiler for someone, and I don't want anyone to be spoiled on this book because you really just have to experience it for yourself. Just know that you are definitely not prepared for the events that go down in this book. You may think you're prepared, but there are so many twists and so many turns that you're going to just be left wondering what the hell is happening and how on earth all of this happened. Just be prepared, because you're not going to be prepared. Christoph certainly has a way with words and creating an epic fantasy world, and you'll be left sitting on the edge of your seat from the very first page. It's crazy, it is intense, it is epic, it is a bloodbath, it is amazing, it is fantastic. One thing I would like to say, if you want to read GODSGRAVE, good, go for it, but may I suggest just waiting until the third and final book comes out at some point next year, because I really need the final book right now and I have to wait, and I don't like waiting. So excuse me while I continue to freak out about this book and anxiously await the final book. I definitely recommend it. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. Like, I cannot find fault with this book. It is epic, it is amazing. I definitely recommend to read it, and if you go to converse in the comments, please don't be too spoilery, but definitely message me on Twitter if you want to talk about it. And go into spoiler details. It's just amazing and I love it. And I would like to say a big thank you to HarperCollins Australia for kindly sending me this for review. It's just epic and amazing and I love it so much. So that is it for today's video. I will leave a link to GODSGRAVE's stuff in the description below so you can go check it out. As I said, feel free to message me on Twitter or Instagram, Facebook, maybe even here on YouTube if you feel like it. If you want to discuss the book, please try and leave these comments a bit spoiler free. As I said, so much happens in this book, I don't really want to spoil anyone on anything. That is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys over the weekend with a new video. Bye!